Welcome to the Creative Cauldron. Our show mixes together media arts professionals, instructors, students at Schoolcraft College to inspire you to take your work to the next level. I'm Jeremy Salo, and today we have a very special guest with us, the director and founder of the Michigan Production Alliance, Mark Adler. He's also the owner and operator of VIA Digital for professional teleprompting, robotic camera operation, and other video assist services. Now today, Mark, I want to talk to you about safety on set, opportunities for growth in TV and film industry, and ways we can ensure the future of media production in Michigan. But first, let's talk a little bit about who you are personally and some of the multitude of projects that you've worked on over the years.
Okay, sure. I went to, thank you for having me, first of all. And I went to several colleges. I started at OCC, went to Wayne State University, and then finally Michigan State. And the reason I left Wayne State, they didn't have any hands-on equipment. Michigan State did. And that consisted of handheld porta-packs. So you had the tape recorder on your shoulder and the camera up here. It was all very heavy affair. That's how I started out. That's right. Very umbilical, very heavy. But that's...
Now, you want to give a time frame to the folks at home that might not?
No.
All right. No time frame.
Yeah, no, that was in the 70s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The 70s.
Yeah.
When Gallagher was smashing watermelons
That's it.
and stuff?
I was out with my camera shooting everything from city council meetings to man on the street kind of interviews.
Awesome.
And that's how I started out.
Great.
And then there was a group called the Video Workshop on campus, and its director was leaving, graduating, and he liked me, and he gave me the opportunity to be in that position where I had access to equipment all the time, so I could check it out to people that wanted it to do things, and we also taught classes. Okay. And that led to cable television, and it's been a progression since then.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the bigger productions that you worked on, some of the films or TV shows that you worked on in the 80s, 90s, somewhere around that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I started in cable television when I was doing the things cable television did, city council meetings again, and running out and doing sports events and that. Then after I left that, I started working on commercials. And my first commercial that I ever worked on was with the Maisels brothers. Albert and I'm going to get caught for this. I don't remember his brother's name, but they were the kind of filmmakers that used like on shoulder cameras only, handheld, and they were famous for Rolling Stones at Altamont. But now they're working for GM. Looking for money like everybody else, but these guys were amazing. They knew just what they were doing, and I don't know what the ratio of shooting was, but it was not like 30-1. It was closer to 5-1 or 10-1.
Well, okay.
Yeah, very sharp guys.
Excellent. So you got in the commercial world, and then you started working on some feature films?
Right. After that, my first film was called Moontrap. It was a film with Walter Koenig, Mr. Chekhov from Star Trek. Was in that, and Bruce, that's right, Live Long and Prosper. There we go. He was fantastic. He had his number 1 scream, his number 2 scream, and number 3 scream, if you've ever watched Star Trek.
Oh, okay.
And he let us see all of them in this film. Check it out. It's in the stores. You can find it online. But I said in the stores. You can find it online.
The apps, kids.
That's right.
That's what he means.
That's right. But so that was a film that I worked on. That was the first full-length film I worked on. I did a lot of what we call day timing, where you just work on one day. And then I got the film Hoffa.
Jimmy Hoffa.
Yeah, that's right. It was made with Danny DeVito. He was the director, and he played a truck driver, kind of an imagined character, an amalgamation of characters. So that was a very good experience working with him. Nice. After that, let's see. So if we want to kind of move into safety, I'll talk about 8 Mile.
See, he looked at my questions ahead of time. I'm like, Mark, come on, you can't look at my questions. Now he's trying to segue. I like segues, so
Okay, do you?
So yeah, we could do.
So 8 Mile was another film I worked on.
All right,
that was a very big film.
Now that's with Marshall Mathers, Eminem,
right,
famous rapper,
and because life happens at night. He was fine with that, but he doesn't like shooting in the daytime. He sleeps in the day, and we did a lot of our shooting in the day.
Right.
So, so that was an issue for him. And
yeah.
So sometimes he was very late. But he was good to work with, and it was an interesting experience also for me because at that time I was doing video assist, instant replay, for the director and only the director in this case. Usually you have a video village. On this film, there were no video villages at all. It was just one monitor or 2 monitors, one for each cameras, and blocked off for the director and the producer only. And another weird thing on that film was no chairs were allowed on set. Usually there's somebody that's pushing around director's chairs.
Yeah,
not on this film, but I had a director's chair. Because I have to. I have to do my work like that. I'm not standing on my feet for 18 hours.
Yeah, that's in your contract.
That's it. So, but guess what? If I leave my chair, he would be in my chair. Marshall would be sitting in my chair, writing in his style that he writes. If you've ever seen that, he writes in a spiral kind of a style. So it was interesting, meeting him in that.
Yeah, they have that shot when he's in the home, the mobile home, and he's writing like lyrics or something.
Yep. He had double duty, first time acting and writing for a film, and that's what he dedicated his time to. He would work out. He had a trailer for working out in as well. He had
like
weights and free weights and that sort of thing, and you'd hear music coming out of that trailer also. So he was not sleeping a lot during the making of that film. But toward the end of that film, I think it was on day 62, which was the last day of that film. That was the burn house. And they couldn't find a house. They couldn't find one that the cities near them would allow them to burn. So finally, in the end, we found one in Highland Park. And
that wasn't Hamtramck.
I'm sorry. No, it was Highland Park.
Highland Park.
Highland Park, yeah. So we had to pay for Highland Park fires gas to get there because at the time they were pretty much in bankruptcy. So little interesting things going on. But they were there, and the idea was that Eminem would be up on the 3rd floor of this house, and his friend at Cheddar would be with his other friends on the main floor messing around with matches and lighting something on fire. The flame was supposed to come up like to maybe his shoulders. And then he'd run out of the building. We had a great big egress for him, stairs out of and a mattress if you wanted to jump. So more than a mattress, a stunt mattress.
Gotcha.
So, but guess what? The flames went way over his head very quickly, and he knew just what to do. He got out of there fast. Really fast. But the 4 camera operators with Panavision cameras and expensive lenses, they had to wait a little while because they were stuck in this room very tight. So they were all hurt in the film. They were wearing those masks that race car drivers wear, burn masks. But so around their ears and their nostrils, they were burned pretty seriously. So they went off to the hospital. And Rodrigo Prieto was the director of that film and the DP. He not the director, the DP. He shot the rest of that night for us, which I thought, in a safety point of view, we should have shut down. But, that's water under the bridge. No one was seriously hurt, but, it happened very fast, and that's what happens in films.
So is there any kind of a safety protocol or any lessons that you learned or that you could share from that to maybe there's a lot of indie filmmakers that are trying to do things, and I guess first would be don't burn a house if you're an indie filmmaker. But are there any other lessons you might want to share?
Well, it's just important to do pre-planning so everyone knows what's going on a given day. You have a safety meeting at the beginning of every day, especially if you're doing anything with children, animals, or fire or weapons, that sort of thing. So everyone understands that. And fire in the hole, if you're blowing up stuff, is said quite often. Just have to make sure that the communication is clear to everybody. That will save a lot of problems right there.
Sure.
In terms of, yeah, even on commercials, things can happen. We are in a small business, for example, like a tire shop, and it's a working shop. And we're laying cables down on the floor and cameras are all over the place for not only us, but for them. Safety is very important, so we have to mark things off and put, not barrels, what do you call those, the little stanchions or cones, safety cones out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, leave it up to the experts and stuff. I remember one of the events that I helped out with Michigan Production Alliance. We had a prop master, Fritz Grono.
That was a great guy.
And he was a weapons master, and he had the FLA or whatever they are. I don't know the terminology.
All the certifications.
All the certifications to shoot firearms and to be safe, and yeah, definitely you want to have experts that are certified, that know the weapons. I've heard of many indie films that they'll just use actual sidearms or actual firearms, maybe even with real rounds in it sometimes, and that's a big no-no.
Right, especially in light of Rust, the film Rust that was out there where some of the DP died. Yeah.
Right. So that was just, they wanted to get a shot, from what I recall. And so the crew wasn't there, but the camera operator they wanted to see the round put in the chamber.
Yeah.
And still not a good thing to do. And they should have faked the angles and a million other safety reasons.
Right. And now they use electronic weapons more and more on feature films.
Oh, okay.
So they will even make a small sound as a reference, so that you have that. And there's a cat that's in Southfield. I'll promote him, Dylan Sides.
Oh, okay.
He has a company called Spy Ops.
Oh, right.
And he's got ambulances. He's got other kinds of cars that are, pretty late model as well as older ones. Having an ambulance in town is great. But he also has hospital equipment, weapons that are, like I say, electronic, and uniforms. So we've never had a prop house like that in Michigan. So if you're an indie filmmaker, talk to Dylan Sides in Southfield.
Yeah.
Promo, shout out.
Cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, Mark, you've been in the industry, like you said, for many decades.
Yeah.
You've seen so many changes from the beginning. We had the huge pedestal cameras, limited broadcast theatrical releases, to the cell phone-sized cameras, streaming and online distribution. Just a huge change in the industry that you've been a part of professionally. So, what are some thoughts that you have about this transformation?
Mostly good. We're all in front of computer screens now. So there's, little damage there over time that can develop with, everyone's wearing glasses because they're staring at screens all the time.
Yeah.
But, it's mostly fine. I mean, the old days, when we started this program, you said, okay, start streaming. In the old days, it was roll tape and acknowledge. Then there would be an engineer over there that would push a button and chunk, and the tape would start rolling. Now, it's simple. And even with the cameras, they're basically computers, and you just have to treat them as such. Gently. They don't like water, and no camera really ever has, but they don't like water, and weather has to be, controlled. You put heating pads on the cameras to keep them, from freezing in different environments. So I'd say mostly good things have happened. Script supervisors who used to write their notes now do it on a computer. Special effects can be done off camera, as we learned in your class. The physical effect that people had from the live action gun to the special effects gun
visual
or
effects,
explosions,
the digital.
It's a different kind of response, emotional response that you have. So you lose a little bit of something without the live action of weaponry and that sort of thing.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's, now I'm doing teleprompter. And when I started doing teleprompter, it was when cut and paste meant something. You were actually cutting and pasting onto a piece of paper.
Right, with scissors and Elmer's glue.
That's it.
Right.
Out in the wind and the paper's blowing while you're trying to roll. I didn't do that very long. I came in at the tail end of that.
Cue cards.
That's it. Right. My first teleprompter computer was an Atari computer, I think.
Oh, nice.
So things have definitely come along. And, I used to have to go to the client's house to get the script that they had, written and on a floppy drive.
Right. The big floppies too, right?
Big
Not
ones,
the little hard ones.
Yeah, not 3.5, right. So that's changed, to the better. I don't have to go out in a snowstorm and get a script. It's, in my mailbox.
Yeah.
So email box, yeah.
So tell us about that part of your career a little bit. So you've, obviously done teleprompter for some pretty prominent individuals or so on. You want to explain a little bit about the process and,
Oh, yeah.
a little bit about that.
Yeah. So when I first started doing teleprompter, it was corporate things for the auto companies. And the auto companies like to save money in any way they can. So they buy their own equipment and have their own people run it eventually. Right. So I'm always out there planting seeds, trying to, get more work. And that developed into political things, which happen every 2 or 4 years. And, so it's kind of steady work, but you still have to be known. And all that involves having a network. As I say in my Michigan Production Alliance guys, I encourage people to make their network as large as possible because that helps you get work ultimately. So I got the opportunity to go to Lansing and be teleprompter for Mr. Obama when he was first running. And that was a great experience. He didn't need the prompter, and I'd never, up to that point, met anyone that didn't need the prompter. He knew it. He remembered.
Yeah.
And once in a while, he'd refer to it just in terms of timing. But he was one of the best I've ever worked for.
Wow.
John McCain, not so much. He didn't like the teleprompter. He did not like wearing his glasses.
Oh, right.
And he couldn't read the teleprompter. So, so that became an issue.
Is that where they put the little bugs in the ears so that someone tells them what to say?
Yeah. Well, there's that too. That's the ear. And that was invented by a local person. What was his name? Bud Haggard.
All right.
Invented the ear. And actors use that to, speak their lines, and they can change their lines if they need to.
Yeah.
But it's a bit of a human technology synthesis that has to go on there.
Okay.
And it doesn't always work unless you're really used to using it.
Right.
Yeah. So, teleprompter's been very good because, again, the presidentials, I use presidential style. That's the ones with the paddles that you see. A lot of people think that's bulletproof glass strategically placed.
Right.
But no, it's just to give
teleprompter.
Yeah, give you the impression that they're speaking to one side of the room or the other.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
So, Mark, I originally met you around 20 years ago or so through Michigan Production Alliance, which you mentioned before. Yeah. And then on the website, it says MPA strives to promote and enhance the community of Michigan media professionals, both union and non-union, by providing resources such as networking, including crew, equipment, contacts, seminars, workshops, and various other industry-related support. Now, I always really appreciated your welcoming attitude and MPA for all the different sectors of industry and authentically providing resources to everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that was really awesome. You've had different events at studios, various studios, some larger, some smaller, schools, industry-related events, businesses, so it's such a wide range of topics to inspire and inform people. I think it was just excellent. So why did you find it important to really make sure that these events were accessible and relevant to the wide range of the industry rather than just a particular subset of it?
Sure, yeah. Well, even back when I was in college, I was training people.
Okay.
And I found pretty quickly that every time I was talking to someone about using a camera or using a tape recorder, I knew that was helping me. I was learning something else, not only about the equipment, but about teaching someone. And that kind of continued on to my career, where I wanted to help people get through. I mean, when I first walked onto a set, nobody told me what to expect.
Right.
And that made a big impression on me. So most people are just thrown into the mix.
Right.
And
sink or swim.
That's it. So I started writing a book at that point, and probably not in the 80s, but when I started, but later on, probably in the 90s, I started writing the book. And it's just informed me and informs my classes that I've taught since probably 2003.
Right. Now, then let's tell the audience that the name of your book is Production Algebra, a Handbook for Production Assistants.
That's right. Volume 1 and 2 now. Yeah.
Right, yeah, and they get the digital version online for folks that don't want to go to the store. They could go online and read it on their digital devices.
That's right. It comes in handy. It's on your phone. It's, when I made the book, published the book, it was meant to be, it wasn't, they said you should make it big like this so your picture's shown a little bit, more efficiently. I said, no, it's got to fit in their back pocket. So, now we're electronic, so definitely fits in your back pocket.
Right.
So as a reference,
Right, and then so this book is for folks that want to get into the industry that aren't necessarily in yet, and so that they're not like a deer in headlights when they walk on the set. They know the etiquette, they know the terminology.
That's right. As I say, it's about, learning what to expect on set, but also what is expected of you on a set. And you learn, so you learn that, and you can walk onto any set, commercial, corporate, reality shows are big around here, very strong. You know what to expect.
Definitely. And then another aspect that you have brought a lot of people up to speed, I remember the PA boot camps, production assistant boot camps. You want to tell us a little bit about the PA boot camps?
Oh, sure, yeah. So I alluded to that earlier. I had been writing because, every PA I'd ever worked with after I had been a PA for I was only a PA for maybe 3 years. I always saw, them with deer in the headlights kind of look. And I'd be jotting something down, and finally, I think it was 2009, when the incentives first happened, that I really got into it. I took my notes, I digitized them. They were all handwritten, and I made a book. I published a book, self-published, and I learned a lot about that process. And the book informs the boot camps. We used to work at Specs Howard. That was our first location because Nicole Ladesseur was there and in the education department, and she really brought those people in. We had 100 students, in some of these Saturday classes. Right. I'd have a drill instructor come in there, complete with hat and whistle. And, so it's like 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday for students, right? They're used to sleeping in. But they've taken the time and spent a little money to be here. So we wake them up, and she introduces me. I was in Grand Rapids once, and they didn't have a drill instructor that, like my friend that does it mostly, Sonia. But this woman got the S&M kind of boot camp instructor idea.
Oh.
She showed up in a cap like you'd find in a porn film.
Oh, and I've never seen one of those.
That's what I'm told. So,
okay.
So that was a little weird. But when I travel around, I've done these boot camps in various places, and I'm not sure when we bring up these pictures. I was in Alaska around 2014. I wrote the book in 2009, and it was published, and it was selling pretty well. And then in 2014, I got a phone call from Alaska. What am I doing for 2 weeks in April? And you kidding me? When can I be there? What is this? So we talked about it, and they bought maybe 100 books, 150 books. This was not the Alaska Film Office, but a group like MPA.
Oh, okay.
That was trying to bring more people in to the business out there because they had a big incentive. Unsustainable, but big incentive. So I trained people in 6 different cities there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful state.
Yeah,
I've been there a
right.
couple times. Yeah, beautiful. Now, I think you brought us a clip from one of the PA boot camps that you had or training seminars.
Right. So during that time, I had an opportunity. I mostly was working every day, and if we weren't working locally in Anchorage, that was my base, we'd be flying from one city to another, Sitka, Ketchikan, a lot of different cities.
Yeah.
But this one particular day I had off.
Okay.
And I went to Seward. My sister had worked in Seward many years ago, and I wanted to see what she saw.
Okay.
And while I was there, I was talking to the police chief because I do that. I'll walk in and say, hi, how you doing? I had a challenge coin that policemen collect. It's a little coin from your area, Detroit.
Okay.
So he loved that. Got a Detroit challenge coin. And he was telling me that there was a movie shooting on the glacier, which was, I think it's called Hunter's Glacier, near the Kenai Mountain. And he pointed me out where it was, and I kind of drove over there, and I saw base camp, and I just drove into the base camp because, I said, how you doing? I'm a production person. I want to interview some of your PAs, and they said, okay. It wasn't tight security. We were in a very rural area.
Oh, right. It wasn't on people.
So this clip that you're going to show is of a PA that was in one of my boot camps, but he was actually working on a film. I think it was called something to do with cold. I can't remember the name, but Carrie Ellsworth was in it. He was a star from Princess Bride. So, yeah, he was there. He remembered me from a film that was done here.
Oh,
it's kind of
nice.
cool. So,
Nice.
yeah, and this kid did it all. So it's a little different version of PAing than we do here.
All right. Awesome. Tal, you want to roll the tape?
All right, go ahead. Say your name.
So my name's Chris. I'm a local here in Seward.
And what is your job on this film?
I'm a production assistant with emphasis on transportation, driving the RVs, which are being used as trailers for the stars and for like warming hut for the actors, and we're also towing the porta potty around, which is pretty important. Someone's got to do it. And then on our downtime, we just kind of help out as needed with other departments. So that, helping the grip guys carry equipment and help the camera guys, with their equipment too. So it's been a good experience just kind of being on set and just making movies.
So it's a good job.
Mm-hmm.
You've had like 9-to-5 jobs in the past?
Yeah.
And this one, is the pay better, worse?
Long hours for low pay. So it's about, we work 12 hours a day for a flat rate, 120 a day.
We've been telling the students that are taking this class, people from Alaska that are interested, about the kind of gear that you use. And I see you've got the surveillance style headset, earpiece.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in the Secret Service here. But
That's it. And but you're in touch with everybody all the time.
Good communication is really important, and we have the earpieces so we're not broadcasting what's going on to everyone at the same time. Some departments have different channels, and also the actors don't really need to know like all the behind the scenes stuff.
Sure.
So they're better off not knowing it.
What channel are you on? Got to run? Okay.
Man, you got that PA in trouble, Mark.
He was fine. Very laid back set.
Awesome.
It was great.
Awesome.
So that was on the glacier in Seward, and those were the Kenai Mountains in the background. Spectacular. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, I've had a lot of great experience with the Michigan Production Alliance over the years. It's great for networking. Met a lot of really wonderful people like David Scheid, worked with on some stuff. Gary Pillon, who collaborated with a lot
Rick
of
Shaw.
Rick Shaw. Yeah, we've had him doing some cool stunt work here and educating about the different processes. Yeah, a lot of really cool people. And then also it's like you might have worked on set with some people, but you're concentrated on a task. And then at MPA, it's like, oh, hey, I remember like Kyle Copey. I see, him. We worked on sets before. We didn't have time to really talk much. And then MPA, it's like, oh yeah, I remember you were on that project, and then you can develop future relationships that way. So I just think it's a really great way to give people that space to network and share abilities and build up
Absolutely.
your roster.
You're a big part of my network. You've helped us out in the past when we've done our podcast with people that are in the business doing specific things, and we want to get them on tape, so to speak, before they retire and get out of the biz.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's great to capture that. And then, so one of the things that Michigan Production Alliance does, and that you're a big advocate for, is trying to encourage different agencies and facilities to support a financial stable environment for what we're trying to accomplish here. So let's talk a little bit about the film incentives here in Michigan.
Sure.
What they were and what they could be.
Absolutely, yeah. Back in I've been an advocate since 2001 because I realized that we no longer had a production resource guide that the film office, Michigan Film Office, had put out every year. Now it was a private entity and it wasn't as good. And we realized that a lot of the work that we had been getting, commercial work, not just features, was going out of town to incentive states, particularly Chicago, and one of the early ones was Louisiana. So I started thinking about that and talking to people and getting involved. That's when I started the Michigan Film Production Group on Yahoo. That's where it started,
Right.
Connecting people together, talking about everything from I forgot my lens, or I lost my lens. Where can I get this lens? That sort of connection to people. This was about the time that internet was really getting strong, and so it was great then. And then. Where are we going? I lost my train. We're talking about
The film incentives.
the film incentive.
and-
It's just something that developed out of that. We saw it was happening in other states, and a lot of people wrote various versions of a bill, but we didn't know how to write bills. So we found a legislator up in Lansing who knew how to write and was for us, but he ended up boilerplating it. It was a good try, but it caused a lot of problems ultimately. Anyway, we wanted to be involved in this. An MPA member or a member of the community was at every meeting from the start to the finish of that first iteration of the incentives. Then we lost that one, but not before people got a good taste of it. People were working a lot. People worked on 11, 12 films in Michigan, especially in the summertime. And that's a wonderful thing for Michigan. Now, of course, we don't have an incentive. MIFIA, the Michigan Film Industry Association, who we support, and I'm on the, what do we call that, the Legislative Action Committee for, has written a new bill, and it's a good bill, but they don't like it up in Lansing.
Yeah.
So it's, anything to do with taxpayer money becomes problematic.
Right.
So, yeah.
So how many states in America have film incentives?
32 at last count.
32
Yeah.
out of 50, and we don't.
Yeah, various kinds of incentives. Some are
Right.
transferable, some are rebates, but yeah, those are the ones that do. Even Minnesota, even Missouri has an incentive.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, it's important to us, and
Yeah.
we're losing work, especially to the states around us.
Right.
Chicago, Ohio is
Right.
eating. What do they call that? Drinking our milkshake, as they said in a famous film.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we're losing work, and our people are going to Ohio. The state
Yeah.
is losing tax money on their earnings.
Right. Right, yeah, and like Georgia has a strong incentive, and they just blew up. I mean, I know a few folks that were from Michigan that ended up setting up shop down there.
That's true. That's true. And in LA too,
LA, right.
New York. But what's happening in LA is just terrible. People are losing their homes because of a kind of a triumvirate of events. It's, we had the strike, the actors' strike, followed by the writers' strike. Then later on, the fires. and work has been dropping out. Netflix, we understand, which was set to produce 60 films this year, has dropped it down to maybe 30 films this year. So there's some trouble going on in the production world. The big tent films, they're still out there, but not as many. It's mostly the films that are more in the 5 to 15 million range, which are mid-level films, they're called, as opposed to multiple millions of dollars.
Right.
So yeah, it's a difficult situation. I think hopefully it's a phase that we'll work out of.
Right.
And, the entertainment industry is a multiple $billion industry.
Definitely. So what do you think is different in the latest proposal, or what are you revising? Because now we're on like a new fiscal year, or there's new, heads in charge, or what have you?
Yeah. Well, we've got to start from scratch because it wasn't taken up in the House last year in November, I think it was. We have to start from scratch. We still have the bill. We're going to tweak it some more, but it featured things that were very Michigan-centric.
Okay.
We made sure that if there were people coming in from out of state, they weren't incented. They didn't have an incentive or less than Michigan people. I think it was 10%, and Michigan people, they get the full incentive, which is, I think, 30%.
Okay.
So there's that. Equipment, the same 30% for the producer. They get this money in the end, by the way. They can shoot all day long, and they can shoot their whole film. But if they don't have their taxes right in the end and their audits come out clean, they don't get that tax credit. That comes out at the end of the project.
Right.
So the state keeps that money locally.
Right. So what can folks do that want to help promote the incentives?
At this point, it's, watch MIFIA.org, MIFIA.org. They've got a website. Of course, MPA's website, MPAMI.org, will also have that information. And talk to their representatives and senators. That information is readily available. Just write down, you'd like to see an incentive in Michigan. It will help workers. It'll help small shops. It'll help rental cars.
Right.
So a lot of different things. The green grocer, it helps a lot of different industries.
Right. The lumber industry
and the lumber industry.
All the different stuff around it. Not just the filmmakers themselves, but and that it's PR, it's free PR for the state of Michigan and all of our companies here.
Yeah.
When there's a buzz going on from a film that was there, or a film that shot 20 years ago or 50 years ago, people are still wanting to come to see that spot. And if they had an option, there's a lot of cool.
That's it. That's what we're hoping for. That would be a wonderful thing. 8 Mile got that treatment. Batman v Superman got that treatment. Not sure which other ones did, but Batman actually had an app that showed you the locations. The film office created this app that you could use.
Yeah.
I think it's still operational.
Gotcha. Well, Mark, I look forward to seeing you at our next Schoolcraft Film Challenge.
Yeah, man.
And thanks for being a big advocate of that over the years, sponsor and judge when you can be. I know you're always a busy person on sets and so on.
Yeah, I try to be.
Yeah.
Try to be. I have to wear a lot of hats, and to keep on working. I am still freelancing, and the union helps me out. We didn't talk about that much, but but just basically, I'm a union member.
Okay.
You don't start in the union. You start non-union and work your way into that.
Right.
And again, that was through your network of people. So that's kind of the best takeaway from this kind of session that we're having right here.
Excellent. Yeah, that's some good advice for all the folks listening at home.
Yep.
So thanks for joining us.
Sure,
and
man.
folks, we'll see you again soon on another Creative Cauldron podcast.